Hello everyone, welcome to the Tim Booker channel. Wishing you all a pleasant listening experience. Today, the book I'll be interpreting for you is Shoe Dog, the autobiography of Nike's founder, Phil Knight. In April 2016, Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, published his autobiography, Shoe Dog, in the United States. Upon its release, the book quickly climbed to the top of the New York Times bestseller list. Bill Gates praised it highly, stating that it was one of his favorite 5 books of 2016. The title of this book, Shoe Dog, has a special meaning. Knight explains in the book that Shoe Dog refers to those who are passionate about shoes and make them their career. Shoe Dog chronicles Nike's 18-year history in chronological order, starting from Phil Knight's entrepreneurial idea in 1962 to Nike's initial public offering in 1980. I will be discussing this book by following 2 main threads: the journey of entrepreneurship and the experiences of entrepreneurship. Let's begin with the entrepreneurial journey of Nike. The history of Nike's development is essentially the history of a group of shoe dogs striving for success. Phil Knight himself, the founder of Nike, is a typical shoe dog. Taking you back to the United States in 1962, it was a time when the hippie movement was flourishing. Rebellious young people had long hair, wore long sleeves, experimented with drugs, listened to rock music, rebelled against society, and rejected tradition. In Oregon, however, there was a young man who didn't fit into this culture. He was thin and shy, with a pale complexion. He had never done drugs, never smoked, and hadn't even dated a girl. In the eyes of others, he was a model student. He graduated from the University of Oregon with a bachelor's degree and later earned an MBA from Stanford University's business school. Perhaps you've already guessed it, this person is the protagonist of this book, Phil Knight. In his youth, Knight appeared weak on the outside, but he had an extremely passionate inner drive. Unlike the outward enthusiasm of the hippies of that era, he often pondered deeply late at night, asking himself, what is the meaning of life? Is it money? Is it a house? None of these were his true desires. What he wanted was to be different and leave a mark on the world. Knight's aspirations in his youth may seem a bit idealistic, much like the fiery ambition of young people today. However, the vast Nike empire that exists today had its origins in his youthful dreams. Knight's entrepreneurial idea began when he was studying at Stanford. He took a course on entrepreneurship, and due to his passion for running, he wrote a research paper on running shoes. Knight realized that in the camera market, the leaders were German brands, but they were later surpassed by Japanese products. Similarly, in the field of running shoes, German brand Adidas was dominant at the time, but Knight believed that Japanese products would eventually surpass them. While most students would have been satisfied with their grades, Knight saw this as just the beginning of his crazy journey. He wasn't content with a good grade, he wanted to fly to Japan to find a shoe manufacturing company and become their distributor in the United States. Knight was drawn to the shoes produced by Onitsuka Tiger, a Japanese company. He went to Onitsuka's headquarters in Japan and told them that he wanted to represent their products in the United States. Coincidentally, at that time, Onitsuka was also interested in entering the American market, so they quickly reached an agreement. Knight was overjoyed and immediately had his father send $50 to Onitsuka as an initial order payment to purchase 12 pairs of Onitsuka Tiger shoes. After 2 years of waiting, around the Christmas season of 1964, Knight received 12 pairs of cream-colored Onitsuka Tiger shoes. This marked the beginning of Knight's journey as a distributor of Japanese running shoes and the start of his long and challenging entrepreneurial path. Knight was a typical shoe dog who had an obsession with shoes. Birds of a feather flocked together, and gradually, he attracted more shoe dogs like him. One of the most notable ones was legendary coach Bill Bowerman and marketing genius Jeff Johnson. Bill Bowerman, Knight's track and field coach during his undergraduate years at the University of Oregon, was a shoe dog who had a love-hate relationship with Knight. Bowerman would often sneak into the athletes' locker room and quietly take their shoes. He would spend days dissecting the shoes, studying their intricate details, and then reassembling them before returning them to the athletes. These seemingly random modifications sometimes caused the athletes great discomfort, even bleeding. However, Bowerman, being the coach, was beyond reproach. Within the campus track and field team, Bowerman had 4 or 5 test subjects, and Knight happened to be his favorite. He knew Knight's shoe size and stride length. From freshman year to junior year, Knight lost count of how many times he had worn Bowerman's modified running shoes. Even in Knight's senior year, Bowerman would personally create running shoes for him. Bowerman had an immense passion for shoes, and this immediately resonated with Knight. When Knight received the Onitsuka Tiger shoes, he didn't hesitate to send 2 pairs to Bowerman. Bowerman was thrilled and made a request. He wanted to be a partner in this business and have a 50% stake. Knight gladly accepted, and thus, the precursor to Knight's company, Blue Ribbon Sports, was established. For Knight, Bowerman was a genius-like sports shoe designer who could continuously come up with new product ideas. This was of great help to Blue Ribbon Sports in its early days. The Cortez shoe is a case in point. In 1966, Bowerman noticed that the outsoles of Onitsuka Tiger shoes would melt like butter while the midsoles remained quite solid. He wrote a letter suggesting that Onitsuka should improve the material of the outsole and create training shoes suitable for long-distance running. Initially, Onitsuka was very indifferent to his suggestions. However, the more indifferent they were, the more persistent Bowerman became. He wrote more letters, using increasingly radical and passionate language to emphasize the importance of his ideas. Finally, Onitsuka followed his recommendations and designed a new track shoe, naming it the Cortez. Consumers loved this shoe, and in 1966, Blue Ribbon Sports had sales of $44,000. In 1967, after the launch of the Cortez, sales doubled rapidly, reaching $84,000. A talent like Bowerman, who could lead and innovate, was invaluable to Knight. Knight regarded him as the cornerstone of the company, a pillar of its soul. Apart from the product itself, another crucial aspect for Blue Ribbon Sports was sales. Fortunately, Knight encountered another shoe dog, Jeff Johnson. Johnson was a friend of Knight's from their time running at Stanford. Just like Bowerman, he had a passion for running and a love for Onitsuka Tiger shoes. Johnson believed that running was a mystical practice, and he felt a divine calling to help runners reach their version of heaven. This might sound somewhat irrational, but the inner world of such eccentric individuals had to be just as eccentric. Johnson had an insane passion for sales, almost to the point of obsession. He wrote letters to Knight constantly, often daily, detailing every aspect of the sales process, how many pairs of Onitsuka Tiger shoes were sold each week, who wore them in races, and their final rankings. He even went further than Knight had ever imagined, contemplating advertising in retail stores. Johnson continuously requested Knight's authorization to open a retail store. Knight understood that for such a madman and genius, you shouldn't impose restrictions or guidelines. Instead, you should give him more space and challenges. Knight presented Johnson with an almost impossible sales requirement. If Johnson could sell 3,250 pairs of shoes in the first half of 1966, he would be allowed to open a store. And Johnson achieved it. How did he manage? He worked 7 days a week, tirelessly selling products. He mastered the art of sales. When communicating with customers, he proactively built his own consumer database. He created an index card for each new customer, containing information like shoe size and preferences. Through this database, Johnson maintained close contact with all customers. During Christmas or on their birthdays, he would send cards to them. He treated these customers as his friends. One customer complained that Onitsuka Tiger's flat running shoes didn't provide enough cushioning. He was planning to participate in the Boston Marathon but felt that he couldn't complete the 42 kilometers in Onitsuka shoes. Johnson hired a local cobbler to transplant the sole of a bathroom slipper into the Onitsuka shoe sole. Surprisingly, it worked. That customer achieved his personal best time in the Boston Marathon. For Knight, Bowerman and Johnson were his right-hand men. These 3 shoe dogs, whether crazy, obsessive, arrogant, or irrational, contributed to the rapid growth of Blue Ribbon Sports, which saw its annual sales double consistently. From $44,000 in 1966, sales had risen to $600,000 by 1970. However, unforeseen events can change the course of things. In 1971, the seemingly sweet partnership between Blue Ribbon Sports and Onitsuka Tiger showed signs of strain. Onitsuka Tiger, recognizing the immense American market for their products, decided to tear up the agreement and end Blue Ribbon Sports' exclusive distribution rights. Knight had some inkling of Onitsuka's intentions. In 1971, Knight invited Onitsuka's executive, Kid Ami, to visit the United States. In Knight's office, Kitami and Knight had an unpleasant private conversation. Knight sensed that something was amiss and surreptitiously looked at Kitami's files. He discovered a list of 18 American sports shoe distributors and appointment schedules to meet half of them. It was a disaster, an influx of competitors that would drown Blue Ribbon Sports and subject it to ruthless business betrayal. Knight had no choice but to seek a new path forward. Where was Knight's path? As Nietzsche said, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. A new brand was about to be born. Knight decided on a two-pronged approach. On one hand, he used legal means to sue Onitsuka Tiger. On the other hand, he was determined to establish his own brand and find other contract factories. They designed a dynamic swoosh, the Nike logo we see today, resembling the trajectory left by an athlete in motion. They chose a name for this brand, Nike, which means the Greek goddess of victory. In 1972, Nike was founded, and over the next 8 years, it rapidly grew to become a leader in the American market. During this period, two significant milestones occurred. One was the launch of the first star product, the waffle trainer, in 1974, allowing Nike to challenge Adidas and laying a solid foundation for its 1980 IPO. The other was the development of air-cushioned shoes in 1977, providing a powerful weapon against Reebok in the 1990s. Nike's waffle trainer was born from a casual comment Knight made during a company meeting in 1971. He remarked that the outsoles of training shoes hadn't changed in shape for the past 50 years, always featuring wave patterns or grooves without any innovation. Bowerman, who remained silent at the meeting, nodded in agreement. For him, the year following 1971 was the Munich Olympics, where he would serve as the head coach of the United States track and field team. The complaints within the company and the pressure of the upcoming Olympics compelled him to seek new product ideas, particularly a more comfortable sports shoe. One weekend, as Bowerman and his wife enjoyed breakfast, he noticed a waffle iron used to make waffles. The grid pattern on the waffle surface suddenly inspired him. That was the sole pattern he wanted for the shoe. He took the waffle iron to his warehouse, attempting to replicate the waffle pattern on shoe soles. Initially, he filled it with polyurethane and began heating it, but the machine failed, producing no shoe soles. Undeterred, he bought another machine and filled it with plaster, yet it also ended in failure. Eventually, he completely abandoned the waffle iron and found a sheet of rusted steel. He carved holes into it to create a surface resembling a waffle pattern. He took this contraption to a rubber company and finally produced shoe soles with the waffle-like pattern. In 1972, the waffle trainer started being used by professional athletes on the sports field. Athletes loved the traction it provided, and word of mouth quickly spread about the product's excellence. Following this success, Bowerman made further improvements and finally launched the iconic waffle trainer in 1974. With its strong grip, innovative design, and competitive pricing, the shoe immediately became the best-selling training shoe in the United States. By 1976, the waffle trainer had transcended its role as mere sports equipment. It had become a cultural phenomenon, worn for training, going to school, and even to work. It became an integral part of people's daily lives. Before the release of the waffle trainer, Knight was struggling with issues like pressure from the bank for loan repayment. However, after the waffle trainer's launch, things took a complete turn. The company couldn't keep up with the demand. In Knight's words, retailers and sales reps were practically on their knees begging us to buy every waffle trainer we could make. Knight liked to quote General MacArthur, perfectly, for a rose you break. The waffle trainer was the disruptive shoe, and its success laid a solid foundation for Nike's IPO in 1980. After the launch of the waffle trainer in 1974, another milestone in Nike's history came in 1977 with the introduction of air cushion shoes. The inventor of the air cushion was a quirky aerospace engineer named Frank Rudy. Just how quirky was he? Well, he meticulously documented his sexual activities and bowel movements. In the eyes of outsiders, he was considered quite eccentric. However, he came up with a method to inject pressurized air into the soles of shoes through airbags, creating a sensation of floating during physical activity. At the time, this idea was incredibly bold. They pitched this concept to Adidas but were promptly shown the door. That's when they turned to Knight. Knight was astounded when he saw the idea and remarked, "I've never seen anything so novel and revolutionary." Knight himself wore the air-cushioned shoes and ran nearly 10 kilometers. Although the cushioning in the soles wasn't stable at the time, he did experience a sensation of lightness. Knight immediately decided to collaborate with Rudy to create a groundbreaking air cushion shoe. Subsequently, Knight introduced a series of athletic shoes with air cushion technology. The air cushion units in the shoe soles made people feel more cushioned and agile during physical activity. At that time, the air cushions in the shoes were invisible. In a chance experiment within Knight's team, they punctured some holes in the shoe soles to make the air cushion visible. This accidental discovery led to a fantastic design, visible air cushioning. It allowed people to more intuitively experience the effect of air cushioning and became highly popular with consumers. By 1987, the Air Max line of air cushion shoes had been introduced and quickly took the market by storm. After the launch of air cushion shoes, they became Knight's most potent weapon. In the competitive market of the 1990s, Knight's Nike surpassed Reebok in market share, and the air cushion shoes played a significant role in this success. So, this concludes the first part of Knight's entrepreneurial history. In the second part, we will focus on 4 key elements behind Knight's success. Today, Knight is no longer the newcomer challenging giants but an undisputed leader in the industry. In 2016, Nike's total revenue reached $32.4 billion, with a profit of $3.67 billion, 3 times that of Adidas. If the initial decision to start a business was driven by passion, the arduous journey of entrepreneurship cannot be simply summarized by passion alone. Knight's success factors, from the individual to the organization, can be summarized as 4 key elements: charismatic leadership, product innovation, brand marketing, and corporate culture. The first element of Knight's success is charismatic leadership. Entrepreneurship always demands the highest requirements from the founder, and Knight is a brilliant business leader with a multitude of contradictory strengths. Firstly, Knight was an elite of his time. In 1962, he earned an MBA degree from Stanford University. For him, there was no shortage of good job opportunities. He worked as an accountant at Price Waterhouse, as well as an assistant professor at Portland State University. It wasn't until 1969, when the company's business stabilized, that he resigned from the university to devote himself full-time to his shoe business. This departure from the conventional career path was a significant turning point. In 1962, Knight's story of entrepreneurship, which differed from the conventional narrative of desperation, was already unfolding. Secondly, Knight worked harder than most elites. He admired military figures like Churchill and Napoleon. He said, "I don't like violence, but I'm fascinated by leadership in extreme situations." In 1971, Knight sensed that Onitsuka, the company they were partnering with, was acting deceptively. He promptly seized the opportunity during a meeting to clandestinely access their confidential files. While this act of peeking at documents might be considered unethical, for Knight, it was a case of using extraordinary means in extraordinary times. Knight was also a good listener. When it came to selecting a company name, he staunchly proposed Dimension 6, but after trying to convince others and failing, he was persuaded to go with the name Nike. Simultaneously, he was decisive in his actions. He replaced 2 successors one after another due to performance-related reasons. As Peter Drucker once said, we need to have a greater tolerance for the seemingly extreme and eccentric behavior of founders. Extraordinary people are needed to lead companies to achieve great leaps, and it's clear that Knight is one of those extraordinary individuals. Nike's second key success factor is product innovation. Disruption is mentioned as an art in innovation, allowing small companies to surpass large ones. However, Knight wasn't just a remarkable company, he used the grandest method of all, which is to be different rather than just better. In moments of fierce competition with Adidas and Reebok, innovative products have always been the breakthrough. 2 typical cases mentioned in the book are the waffle trainer and air cushion shoes. Following these, Nike's product innovation never ceased. In 2005, they introduced the Nike Free Barefoot series, simulating the sensation of barefoot running. In 2008, Nike launched the Lunar series with innovative cushioning technology, providing enhanced running power. In 2012, Nike introduced the Flyknit technology, using high-strength fibers to create breathable shoes. Through product innovation, Nike gained a leading position and continued to maintain its top status through ongoing product innovations. The third key success factor for Nike is brand marketing. Nike's most iconic move in brand marketing was signing Michael Jordan and launching the Air Jordan standalone brand. Air Jordan, directly translated as airborne, has always developed as an independent sub-brand within the group. In 2016, in the U.S. athletic shoe sector, Air Jordan had a market share of approximately 10%, while the Nike brand held about 40%, and Adidas only had 6%. As an independent brand under the Nike group, Air Jordan has undeniably been very successful. Behind this success, we must mention another sneakerhead and marketing genius, Sonny Vaccaro. The roots of Nike and Jordan's connection go back to the 1984 NBA draft. Both Nike and Adidas were looking to sign the basketball rookie sensations of that time. Nike had its eyes on the number 1 draft pick, Hakeem Olajuwon, and 2 other rookies. However, Vaccaro strongly opposed this and vividly remembered Jordan's 1982 game-winning performance against Georgetown, and he was convinced that Jordan was the one he needed. He insisted on focusing the entire budget on Jordan alone, rejecting the company's proposed 3 rookies. He promised to name a new line of basketball shoes after Jordan, which piqued Jordan's interest. It's important to note that in 1984, Jordan was not widely known, and even the designer of the first pair of Jordan shoes hadn't heard of him before. Vaccaro's gamble on Jordan was unprecedented, and it exemplifies the kind of craziness that sneakerheads like him possess. But evidently, Vaccaro bet right. The first pair of Jordan shoes was released in 1985, and in its first year, it brought Nike $200 million in revenue, surpassing the revenue from all other Nike products at the time. After that, Jordan went on to break NBA records frequently, and the legend of the basketball deity became unstoppable. His legendary journey created the Air Jordan brand and contributed to Nike's success. Vaccaro was also skilled at using innovative marketing techniques to introduce Nike to more young kids and make them fall in love with the brand. His method was to establish the famous Nike training camps. He gathered all the high school basketball talents, invited the best coaches, and provided them with training, shoes, and sportswear throughout the camp. This allowed these young basketball prospects to be exposed to the Nike brand before they even entered college. Vaccaro organized this camp with high authorization and financial support from Nike's top management, and it proved to be highly successful. The students had a strong affiliation with the Nike brand, to the extent that some of them said they wouldn't go to college without Nike sponsorship. The entire basketball training camp served as Nike's marketing headquarters, and the essence of this marketing success lay in Nike reaching young players before its competitors did. The final key success factor is Nike's corporate culture. To truly understand the long-standing success of Nike, we must delve into its cultural dimension. In the book, Business Classics, and Built to Last, 2 typical characteristics of enduring companies are mentioned, cult-like culture and a pursuit beyond profits. These 2 traits are also very evident in Nike's case. When we talk about cult-like culture, we may think of Nike's corporate culture. A cult-like culture often conjures images of groups like the Pepe Escobar gang. Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal, describes members of the Pepe gang as individuals who spend so much time together that they neglect their families and the outside world. Still, they develop a strong sense of belonging and may even discover mysterious truths that elude ordinary people. To outsiders, such organizations might appear as cults. In Nike's case, there's a similar cult-like culture known as the Rogue Meeting. Nike's top executives gather for this meeting every 6 months, and the participants are humorously referred to as rogues. In contrast to titles like general manager or director, the term rogues carries a sense of the unconventional. Nike describes this group of people as mostly hailing from Oregon, feeling the need to prove themselves to the world and show that they are not just country bumpkins. This is not a culture of sophisticated professionals in suits but rather a group of passionate and combative individuals. The Rogue Meeting has 3 distinct characteristics: frankness, trust with authorization, and strategic thinking. Firstly, there's frankness. During rogue meetings, thin-skinned individuals are the least tolerated. Among this group of rogues, there's a person nicknamed Thunderstrike. In one meeting, he complained that the company's direction lacked wildness and had too many nitpickers. In the midst of a heated argument, Thunderstrike grabbed his folder and threw it at the wall, yelling, "You guys can all go to hell." The folder burst open, papers flew everywhere, and everyone around the meeting table shouted and cursed. They were brutally honest and unafraid to speak their minds. Secondly, there's trust with authorization. Knight, the top leader of Nike, has always believed in a quote from General Patton, don't tell people how to do things, tell them what to do, and they will surprise you with their ingenuity. Knight manages this group of rogues this way: he provides minimal guidance. When they perform well, he simply nods and says, "Good job," express approval. When they make mistakes, he might yell at them for a minute or two but doesn't engage in micromanagement. He fully trusts and authorizes his subordinates, allowing them to bring surprises to him. Thirdly, their strategic thinking. The core purpose of rogue meetings is to address company issues, ranging from major events like taking the company public to minor decisions like trademark determinations. Despite the seemingly chaotic shouting and cursing, these discussions allow for the full exploration of ideas, directions, and opinions. After each meeting, the thoughts, proposals, and opinions are meticulously recorded and then put into action. This is the true utility of rogue meetings. The rogue meeting is a microcosm of Nike's management culture. It helps Nike avoid the bureaucratic ailments often associated with large companies while maintaining vitality and combativeness. Apart from its cult-like culture, Nike possesses another distinctive feature: a deep reverence for the spirit of sports, a pursuit that transcends commercial interests, verging on obsession. Knight himself was a track and field athlete during his college years, and Bowerman, an Olympic coach, shared his passion for sports. For them, sports was more than just business, it was a spiritual belief. Throughout its history, Nike has had a tradition of naming buildings after athletes. In the US, there's the Jordan Building, and in China, there are buildings named after Li Na and Lu Xiang. Knight's dedication to the culture of sports is most evident in the case of Lu Xiang. In April 2015, at 5 p.m., Lu Xiang officially announced his retirement. In his statement, the only sponsor he mentioned was Nike. Nike first signed Lu Xiang in 2002. 2 years later, he rose to fame at the Athens Olympics, attracting offers from up to 14 different brands. However, by the time of the 2008 Beijing Olympics, Lu Xiang had to withdraw from the competition due to injury, leaving him with only 4 remaining endorsement deals. At that time, Nike stood by Lu Xiang and released a statement: "Fast to the population. Love hurts. Love sports, even when it breaks your heart." By the 2012 London Olympics, Lu Xiang had to withdraw from the race once again. The only brands accompanying him were Nike and Coca-Cola. Nike expressed their support with a set of posters that said, "Greatness doesn't bow down to others. Who dares to risk everything? Who dares to start from scratch at the peak, even if they may gain nothing? Who dares to challenge? Who dares to fall? Greatness dares." This poster moved many to tears. After all, who hasn't faced failure, and who lacks companions during the peaks of their lives? Nike, like a faithful companion, has been there with you through all the highs and lows. For a brand, choosing Lu Xiang at his peak required financial gain, but standing by him in his lows required faith. Nike embodies this faith in sports. Their cult-like organizational style and their spiritual belief in sports together shape Nike's corporate culture. Finally, let's summarize the content of the book, Shoe Dog, which is divided into 2 parts, the entrepreneurial story and entrepreneurial experiences. In the entrepreneurial story, the book covers an 18-year history, starting from 1962 when Knight first conceived the idea of entrepreneurship to Nike going public in 1980, with the establishment of Nike in 1972 serving as a significant milestone. The first 10 years involved Blue Ribbon Sports acting as a distributor for Japanese Onitsuka Tiger shoes, while the following 8 years saw Knight building the Nike brand. The term, shoe dog, mentioned in the book refers to those who have a deep love for shoes and a passion for designing them. Notable representatives include Bill Bowerman, who developed the waffle sole, and the sales genius Johnson, who constantly wrote letters. Knight, in the early days of his entrepreneurship, attracted a group of shoe enthusiasts or shoe dogs, which helped steer the company in the right direction. Later on, through continuous product innovation, Nike introduced innovative products like the waffle sole and air cushioning shoes. In the 1980s and 1990s, Knight surpassed Adidas and Reebok respectively, ultimately becoming the industry's leading figure. Regarding entrepreneurial experiences, we can summarize them into 4 key points: leadership charisma, product innovation, brand marketing, and corporate culture. To conclude, let's use the book's most iconic phrase, "Cowards never start, and the weak die along the way. Only those who keep moving forward, without stopping for a single step, remain." Well, that's the interpretation of Shoe Dog. Congratulations on completing another book. Thank you all for your support and attention. Please subscribe to the Tim Booker channel, like, and share this valuable knowledge with your friends. Let's combine wisdom with practice, achieve our financial goals, and create a better future together. Thank you, and goodbye.